Okay, we are live, I guess.
Ooh, now for real.
Now for real.
And not just
for a test. Accidentally. Ha! Basti just arrived. Hello, Basti.
Hello.
We haven't even said hello really properly. Just arrived by train. I've just done my setup here. It's a mess, but you don't see anything. So
no, it looks great.
Camera.
Marc. It looks as shiny behind the cameras as it does on camera.
That's great.
Yeah, the train ride was a bit sketchy. So I arrived just like half an hour ago, and by luck though, because the train situation in Germany right now is absolutely a mess. They are going on strike tonight, and there is still winter, which is totally surprising for the Deutsche Bahn. So,
yeah, snow, you know.
Yeah, and
snow.
It's.
And if it's not winter,
I'm glad that I'm here.
Me too, because it was all like very tight, like scheduled, right? Like your arrival, my stuff setting up here, and also as I usually have a setup over there at my desk, which is fixed. All the cabling and stuff. I was like, freaking out. But it all worked out. And you should let us know if there is any issues with audio, if we are not loud enough, or if any image that you should see is not visible for you. We've got two setups, actually. This is the one where Basti and I chat a little bit. And then the other one would be a split screen where you see Basti demoing the new version of Kirby. And that's the reason why we're here, Basti.
2 years later.
2 years later. Crazy, isn't it?
It's totally crazy. We realized this when we talked about the idea to make another show again. And I was like, 2 years, how is this possible?
No.
It seems like it has been last year for me, but
Same here. I remember packing all my stuff and driving to Neckargemünd, where you live.
Yeah. That was at our dining table in
exactly.
The living room. Yeah.
Like here. So... and since then, I mean, was that really last time for 3.6? Was it, or was it for 0.5? 0.5 was online,
it was
I think.
Earlier, right? So it is. I think it could be 3.6. Yeah, you could be right.
Yeah,
I think so.
And then since then, a lot of stuff changed, and you and the team, of course. When I say you, Basti, and working on Kirby, it's like a team behind it. And I was wondering when Kirby 4 was planned to be released. Was it on schedule? Was it on time, or did you move it back a little bit?
Well, we started with we announced it, I think in March or in February. Mm-hmm. We announced that we are going to work on Kirby 4 now. We started working on it in January, I think, so pretty much a year. And we announced it to be released after the summer break. So the initial idea was to get it done by September, October. Yeah, well, it isn't as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
It's not like years later, it's months later. But we got so much feedback over the time, and we did a lot of alpha releases and beta releases in the meantime.
And people even used it in production, I've heard.
Yeah, against our recommendations. And so, we got so much feedback that the ideas just kept coming. There were, of course, also issues that we had to fix. So it moved. And I think it's not too bad. I'm still quite proud that we kept it for this year. Mm-hmm. And I think the timing with the end of the year also worked out quite well.
I think so too. I mean, I myself, for example, gonna find that time between Christmas and New Year's Eve to then maybe sit down and take some time to upgrade my websites, because of course you don't want to make sure that everything stays where it is and nothing breaks.
Wait a second, so you didn't upgrade already?
No, not yet.
Well, you are the host of the show, so yeah. Oh man, we should have talked about this.
Yeah, we could have done a live update.
Yeah, shit.
No, I didn't. I think I'm going to start with my blog, and the Beyond Tellerrand website is a bit trickier, I guess, because I know that you did some extra stuff on there that needs updates, I guess.
I think it should work fine for you.
A good example. So. We can do like a live test
later.
No. But talking about breaking stuff and making things new, are you satisfied with the new version, or is it something where you go like, we had to drop a few things to make it happen that we released this year, or is it overall that you say, well, that release is on point, we like it, we love it?
There is always stuff that you have to drop last minute because otherwise you could never finish it. It's like this a thing that we said, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks before the release. So we have to stop now. There are things which we really wanted to get fixed, or that we really wanted to get in that release for the final version. But then you could just keep going on and on and on. And I have to say, I'm biased, of course, because we have been working on this for such a long time. And I guess this question should really be more targeted at the community, like how do they like it and not how do we like it. But I feel like we have done a pretty good job in this year, and I'm very happy with the results. I'm very happy with the feedback so far. I think it's our best version. I've said that before. It sounds a bit cheesy, but I really think so.
Well. So what would you say? Like, what was the reason? Like, except from bug fixing and stuff, like, what's the biggest improvement in the new version? Is it the panel? Is it like also stuff on the front end side?
Yeah, it is definitely the panel. So we have changed a lot in the panel, design wise, feature wise, general improvements for the user experience, and I think the history behind this is really that we took a time, it's probably starting at 3.6, where we invested a lot of time to get stuff cleaned up, take care of things in the background, in the back end, basically, that we wanted to refactor and improve, which has basically accumulated over the years. It's a typical tech legacy problem. So you work on something and then issues keep piling up, or code just gets messier over time. And so we spend a lot of time cleaning this up. And the feedback was that this is a bit of an invisible process for the community, because then in the end you don't really see much about it. Stuff just keeps on working afterwards, hopefully. And there's not much that is targeted at the editors or the developers themselves. And for us, this really was like the driving force for this release, to go back to now enjoy all these improvements and build on top of them, and then really bring some new stuff that is definitely visible and is definitely moving the design forward, that is moving the feeling for Kirby forward. Because, I mean, it is, the panel design has been unchanged mostly, despite a couple minor things, over like 3 years, almost 4 years actually. Yeah, well, it started in 2019. So, and the web is moving fast, design taste is moving fast, and you get to this point where it's inevitably going to feel a bit dated at a certain level. And I feel like, yeah, this was one of the main reasons now to change so much about the design, or work on this panel so much.
And what was the main focus? And like when you were working on the new panel as a team, was it like I guess it wasn't something like responsive design, because the old panel did work responsively as well. So what was it? What was your focus? And when you said like we need a new panel, a new design, a new layout, a new version of the panel? Yeah,
what we started with is a new layout, which you can see later. I think lots of people already saw it on the website. So we removed the top bar that has been there so far. We moved to a new sidebar. And a lot of that is coming from, basically CSS improvements. So we now have container queries available pretty much everywhere. And we suddenly could do things that we couldn't do before. So a lot of the reasons behind the design decisions that we had in the previous version, the versions, were based on limitations that we would have to overcome with a lot of JavaScript, or which would just be very finicky to get fixed. And now the situation has improved a lot with the recent changes in CSS. So it felt like we can do more now that we would have shied away from before. So that was one thing. And then we just wanted to give it a fresh touch in some places, but without making it feel too strange. So it shouldn't feel like a completely new thing that you would then open up and you don't know where the buttons are anymore. And
it's always a risk, right?
Yeah, because I hate this myself. So you visit you visit an app a couple months later and then you don't find anything anymore. And so it should still feel familiar, but it should feel fresh and more open. And for us, this new layout also has more space for ideas. So we have a couple things in mind that we want to build on top of that. That was one thing that we worked on to get those ideas like prepared with the design. But then overall, just improve the fields, improve the sections, just tiny bit, not extreme, not turn it up like to 11, but just slightly improving it here and there. And I think this worked out pretty well.
Okay. And do you ever fear that people, I mean, we all know like the hate is going to hate and the love is going to love and stuff, but just out of curiosity, if you do a new version of Kirby, of software in general, and you have to pay an upgrade price for that, do you ever fear that people come and go and look at the new version and go like, well, you just needed a reason to charge again, this kind of stuff? Or did this ever happen? I mean, as you say, like the risk, if you change too much, the risk is always that the people that used to use the software go, well, I don't find anything anymore. Yeah. And the other people might say just the opposite. They would go like, well, it didn't change a lot. So why are you doing a new version?
Yeah. I think it would be wrong to deny that is part of the process. That you think about, like, are we adding enough value to this new version to make it really enticing to upgrade
and paid upgrade?
And that is partly about the design. It is also about the features, and I think it is also part why it has been released later than we planned, because we thought like, we could still add this and add that, and then you have those thoughts about the new license model, and you keep thinking like, is this really a good version? And so the pressure is pretty high. That is definitely true. But I feel like this version is, if you look at the release page, I think it has a lot of stuff in it, which makes it worth.
And what was talking about licensing and upgrades, what was the decision against subscriptions? Because like you're, I think, one of the few leftover companies that still don't have a subscription. I think IA Writer you can do a subscription, I think, but they do still have the pay once thing. And that's it, I think. I don't remember a lot that I recently upgraded or am still using where they don't have a subscription these days. I mean, the benefit for developers and for the company is obvious, right? But, I mean, I hate subscriptions. I do, but maybe I'm just old-fashioned. I don't know.
Oh, we talked about this so much. We keep on talking about it over and over again as a team, because it is one of those fundamental decisions. Personally, I think all of us totally hate them. It's coming from a very personal point of view that we don't really like paying for subscriptions. Well, there is, but subscriptions on their own aren't a bad thing per se. I think the problem with subscriptions often is that they keep on piling up. So you have one subscription after another, and then you get lost in your expenses at some point. You just don't really remember anymore what all those little apps cost you. And I find it difficult. So we decided, for us, the situation has always been a bit different than from an app like IA Writer, for example, because I would need one version of IA Writer, and then that's basically it. So I'm kind of pretty easily satisfied with one version of IA Writer. That would be my expense for them. But for us, our target group is freelancers and is agencies. And so what works for us is that our community is coming back to us and building new sites over and over again. And so this recurring payments recurring payments already happen for us in a certain way. So it's not exactly a subscription. And of course, there could also be theoretically some kind of market saturation at some point, but it hasn't happened for us yet. So this is still a situation where we can benefit from the fact that people build multiple websites. What we did now, I mean, I should maybe talk a bit more about what we did now, because we switched our license system. What we had so far was a single license, so you would pay 99 euros and then you build one site with it. And what we did now is we split it in 2 licenses. So we have the basic license, which is still costing 99 euros. We didn't change that. We didn't correct it for inflation. But on the other hand, we have a much higher priced license now for enterprise sites. And we split them by revenue limits. So if your company has revenue that goes above 1 million euros per year, you would need an enterprise license. So that is basically now our new license system. And what we also changed is that this license is now, all upgrades for this license are now free for 3 years. And then after this 3 years, you can decide if you go on, if you buy another 3 years, or if you say, okay, no, I'm fine with the latest version, I just keep it like that. So you always keep it, you don't have to upgrade. That's pretty much like it has always been. You weren't forced to upgrade to Kirby 4 before. It's something where we, of course, well, if we are totally honest, we of course keep updating Kirby. So there are new features, and we have security support for the new versions, and that at some point you reach the end of life of your license if you stick with it, or if not your license, your version of Kirby when you stick with it. So, but if you're fine with that, you can run it for basically forever. And that has changed. So this is the 3-year model now for us. And the idea behind it mostly for us was that we didn't really have a good upgrade model before. Our upgrade model before was that with every new major version, you would have to pay for an upgrade, and everything between would be free. And we saw that this is too long for us, because what we did in the last years is that we had a major upgrade every 5 to 6 years. And this is, it's not, that is the part where we also reach a point where it's no longer realistic for us to keep it going like that. So we decided, okay, 3 years is a pretty decent amount of time, but within these 3 years, we no longer have to bind it to a major upgrade. We can now release major versions whenever we like. Basically, we decided to go for 1 year now. So next year would be Kirby 5, and then the year after one would be Kirby 6. But that doesn't force you into new upgrade prices. We can just keep on releasing those versions, and it makes it a lot easier for us, but also more plannable for our customers, I think, because now we have those timescales and we can talk about them pretty clearly, and they don't force on us to do something specially rushed just to fulfill something. And on the other hand, I think it's a way more plannable system.
Before we move on, people say if you could get closer to the microphone.
I'm too okay. Sorry.
That's cool.
Good.
By the way, while we're talking about the stream, we are close to 50 people on the stream. That's quite nice, right?
To be honest, this time isn't ideal, and we know about it.
Yes.
So I really thought we would just be 5 or 6 people in here, because we had to set it to this time. Tonight is the meetup in Düsseldorf, so Marc and I want to attend this as well. And then we had to record this early to get this all under the hood.
Because we didn't know that Bastian might stay until Saturday. Because the barn decided to.
Yeah, that's another story. But this only got clear yesterday. So too late to reschedule.
Please let us know in the chat if the audio is better now for Bastian.
Oh, yeah, please. I can move closer. It's no problem.
Yeah.
I just didn't know.
Should be fine.
Yeah, well, there's the delay right now, so we have to wait for them to say if it's good or not.
20 seconds.
Okay.
Cool. I mean, enough theory at the moment. Talking about license stuff.
Totally.
Should we go into a few practical things? Because I think here might be people in the stream actually that are eager to see what actually is new at Kirby.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think you prepared a little bit.
I prepared a little bit. I prepared a little bit. Let's see how far we get.
Then audio is okay, they say. I switch to you and your computer, and I say, enjoy.
So we already talked about the new design, so this is what I want to start with. Let me move this a bit closer again. Oh, and I need to. We just talked about that. I need to center myself again. Okay, so this this hopefully looks good. I can't look at you now. I have to look at the screen. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I talked about the new design. This is what it looks like. You might have seen it in the screenshots. I'm pretty sure you did. The main or the most visible change is that we no longer have the top bar up here, the black top bar, which has been around for a long time. We removed it. And I have to say I'm pretty happy about it. I wasn't sure at first if this would be too drastical, because it has become kind of a Kirby thing, but I'm really happy that we did. So what we now have is a new sidebar, which is extended by default, and then you can collapse it, so it can be pretty decent again. So basically just like it takes the same space as the top bar now on the left side. And we are going to talk about this menu a bit more later, because this menu can now be a lot more than the top bar ever has been, and I think this is the most important part about it. It's not just changing to a sidebar because we like it better. It is really about the functionality of it. You have your regular menu items in there, which are now a lot more visible. Before we had this drop-down menu, which quite a couple people complained about, because for some folks, when they don't use this regularly, it has been hard to find where to move between the different main areas. And now this is a lot clearer. And we now also have a bit more space for other settings in here. So I think this is cool, and I will show you a couple more things later about the menu. As I said, we can collapse it, we can extend it, whatever you like. The setting will of course be stored. Other than that, I said before, we didn't want to make it too, how would you say, like not too different. So it should still be Kirby. It should still be clear where elements are and how they work. The main difference for us now is that we, as I said before, have better options to work with our sections and make them responsive through container queries. Because with the sidebar, this has been a huge challenge. And our section system is so flexible, our column system is so flexible, that this has been a major pain point for us in the past when we thought about a sidebar, and now it's totally easy. And this is really cool because it really adds a couple more options that we didn't have before. So this would be the layout. Another big change is our button design. We have now filled buttons, and you will see them a bit more later. So we have kind of tried to make the buttons more button-like. Also coming from feedback to just make it clearer and easier to see what can I push. Sometimes this is just really helpful. And then another big change is the icon system, because we have a completely new icon system. And this is something that I personally was against for a long time. And from the community, there was this feedback, the old icons, they look kind of dated, and it's difficult because it is a paid icon system. So whenever we want to add custom icons in our plugins or in our themes, you couldn't really do this because you would have to buy the icon set first. And I really liked those. I was a fan of those. And sometimes it's just like those personal decisions where stubbornness might not be the best idea. So we switched to a new icon system. We searched for it for a long time and found a pretty good one, which is open now, which has, of course, this benefit that you can now easily go in and add your own icons. And it's a huge set that was important for us because we have a couple icons that are kind of special. And this was always a challenge with other icon systems where important icons just weren't there. And so we couldn't use it, or we would have to redraw our own icons. And so we are really happy with this now. And I have to say, going back now to the old version, I was so wrong, and I just have to apologize because I think it has been a really good decision, or it was great that you pushed us to move to a different icon system. Good, but let's get started with some of the features, because mostly this is all about features. It's not just about the design. And I want to start with something that has been in the form of plugin for a long time, and you ask for it on Nolt or on our feedback platform a lot, to bring it into the core, and that is the link field. So as a field, as a standalone field, but also in the form of a link dialog for our blocks, or for our blocks or for our text areas. So this is now finally here, and I think it's a really big change that should have been here earlier, to be quite honest with you, because I mean, links are such a substantial part of a website, and it should be as easy as possible to create links to external sites, but also to internal pages. And this is now what the link field solves. This is it. This is the link field. This is now embedded in our link dialog. It can be standalone as well, so you can use it in your fields as well. And you can choose the type of link that you want to add to a text area, to a blog, or just to a normal content file by moving around here. And this is now the big change, because now we have the option to go through our site, go through a link tree, pretty traditional way to navigate a site, and then select the kind of page that you want to link to. And this works for pages. It also works for files. So I could go to my shop. My shop doesn't have any files. I could go to this product. It has a file, and so I can link to this file. It also has a couple more other link types. So I could add an email address. I could add a phone number or an anchor. And so this link field is now really powerful and a great way to build internal links, but also external links. And I'm glad that we finally have this in the core. This tree that we have built for this is also coming up in other features that I'm going to talk about a bit later, or in one other feature. And I think it's also a great component for plugins, but also for us to build upon for the future, to have more of those, just have it as a pattern that we can use in other places, because it is a traditional pattern for content management systems, but it is also still a very effective pattern. The block field, as I'm already here in the block field has a couple improvements that you've been asking for. There are new shortcuts to navigate through blocks, to select blocks. There's also a new way to split blocks. So you can now go in and, with this text field here, for example, decide that you want to turn this into two text fields, or two text blocks, by selecting a new split option, and then it would break here, and then you could change this and turn this into a new block type, for example. Or you could just decide that this was the wrong idea, and you can merge them again, and then go back and remove the paragraph that has been introduced by this. So this new split option is now available. It is something that only a couple blocks implement, because it doesn't make sense everywhere. For the image field, it would be kind of weird. But you can also use this in your own block plugins if the plugin is, or if the block type that you are building, if it makes sense for it to be split. So that's another great feature. We also improved dragging of bigger objects. So if you have a bigger block like this, you can drag it around now and it collapses, so it doesn't take up the entire space that the block would normally take up. And this is quite useful for the experience when you drag stuff around. As I said before, there are a couple shortcuts that you can use now. You can look them up. That's really handy to move faster. There's also a new option for some blocks where it makes sense. You can now create new blocks by pressing enter. So for example, if I type a headline and I press enter, it will automatically create a new block, text block afterwards, which also improves the experience of writing in the blocks field. So this was one of the multiple things that we try to improve with the blocks field. I said before that we have this new tree pattern now, or this new tree component, and a big feature that we've introduced here with Kirby 4 is the new move page feature. So pages can now finally be moved in the page tree. And of course, it makes sense to use the tree here again. So in this case, I'm trying to move a blog article. My site is set up in a way that I can't really move it to other places other than the blog. But if you think about building a product list, for example, and it would have categories, and the categories would be in a form of subpages, then you could now easily move products between those category pages. There are other thoughts, other parts of where this could be really useful to just move around a page. I can now move it to the top page, which doesn't make so much sense in this case, but I think you can totally see places where this is useful. The disabled pages here, they are automatically detected. So Kirby would scan your blueprints and then find out if a page is accepted by that parent page, and it would go through the pages sections in your blueprints and then decide if it can be moved here or not, just as a safety measure to not move pages in places where they shouldn't be. We also improved our layout fields. Ahmed has built a really great way to change layouts, so you can finally move between different layout types. So for example, here this would be a single column layout, and I can now change it to a 2-column layout. And as you can see, it will automatically reflow and move blocks as they seem to fit. And now I can move them around here again and then revert this, move to different columns, to move to 3 columns, for example, just as it is. So what you would have to do before is to create a new layout and then move every block to that new layout. And this is a lot easier now. I have to look on my list for a couple times to just see what I'm doing here. So if I'm looking this way, you know that I need to find my next task here. What we've also changed, so for this microsite demo here, we have a little image section or file section here. And one big change is also our new uploader. So when we upload images to Kirby, we now get this upload dialog. And this upload dialog has a couple functions that are super useful. For example, you can easily preview files if you chose the right file, which is sometimes a bit tricky to see. You can remove them again if you chose the wrong files, and you can also change the file names. And I think this is a pretty handy feature because now you can finally clean up the file names before you upload them and not just go through all of them and rename them later, which is super handy. And on the backend side, we now also have the option to resize files on upload, which has also been a major community request for a long time. So you can now go to the file blueprint for to the matching file blueprint in this case, and then set new create rules for new files, and then they will be resized on upload. So if your clients upload like 6 megabytes large images and you don't really need that original size, then you can already make sure that the files won't be uploaded in such massive sizes. The next one that I want to show you is I've set up an example in our shop, is the new create dialog, which also has been something that only existed as a plugin so far, a really cool plugin, but I think it is one of those features that you run into so regularly that it really should be in the core. So right now, if I go back and if I create a new page, it would look like this. So this is the normal page creation dialog. You would have a field for the title and a field for the slug that should be created. And that's totally fine. And you can only create pages as drafts so far, which is also fine in 99% of all cases. But then why not make it possible to add more information already on creation of the page? And so now this is possible. You can now set up the create dialog also in your blueprint for that particular page type. So for example, this is the blueprint. Now this is set up in the blueprint for the shop product. And now I can choose between the fields that are set up for this product. So I can say, okay, I want to specify the title here, the product name. I still want to have control over the URL, but I also want to already set the price for this and maybe also enter the brand for this. And as you can see here, also a major community request. New pages can now be created as public pages. This is a bit. This has a. Well, how would I say that? It is a bit risky. So you have to be sure that you are setting this up correctly, because the reason why we didn't do this so far is that most of the times you create something and then information is missing. So for example, you would have a required field that is not filled in yet, or an image would be missing, and then your layout could break, for example. And so if you know that this is one of those pages that can totally be where missing information is not a big deal, then this is a totally great option. So now I could go and create a new page and say, okay, this is super expensive and it is coming from Apple. And then this is now being created. As you can see, this would be not a great example here because the image is missing, but well, this is it. Now it is created as a public page already. It would go live immediately. And now I could still fill in the information, of course. And another thing that you might have seen now is that normally what we did when new pages are created is that we immediately redirect it to that page. And this is also something that you can control now. So I stayed in the shop here when I created this. And sometimes this is a really handy behavior where you think like, oh, let me add a couple products first, and then I can still click on them individually and go to that view and fill in information later. And it's a lot more handy to just fill them up first and then go through the list. So to give you an idea how this looks like, let me go to the blueprint for it. So this would be the shop product, and there is a new create block up here where we can control this. So I think it's pretty easy to read. So we can decide which fields we want to have in here. And those are just the field names for fields that you already defined. And then we can also override the label of the title field. We could do this for the slug as well. We can change the status. This would be changing the button the save button here basically. And then this is the option to change the redirect behavior. False is clear. It would stay where you are currently creating this product. And if you just keep it away, then it would still redirect to the new page. I'm really happy that we have this now in the core, because I think it's making a lot of things easier. And then the next one, also big one, and I have to say a huge thank you to Flo here, who has been maintaining the image focus plugin for such a long time. I think he wrote that he has maintained it for 7 years, which is amazing. And we have been told so many times that this is like the go-to plugin for every new installation, where you can set the focus point for an image. And now this is also in the core, and because, well, it really should be. So the shop here is a great example where I have square cropped image previews. And as you can see, well, the product placement here isn't ideal. So this cup isn't really in the middle. Those headphones aren't in the middle. There are a couple of issues here. And now we can easily fix them by going to the image, and we can set the focus point for it. So for example, I would say the focus here should be somewhere here. And you can see there's a new focus button here now, where it shows me roughly the percentage, or not roughly, it shows me the percentage where the focus point is set. I could also remove it again, so I don't have to have it in there definitely if I don't want it. And if I've saved that, it would save that focus point to the text file for that image. And now it would also automatically crop this. Doesn't work perfectly yet. I think I have to put the focus more into the center of the cup to move it up. And now it's working great. With responsive images, this is the most reliable way, in my opinion, to work with images, because then you don't really define formats. They couldn't work, depending on the layout. You define what is the most important part in the image. And with that, it doesn't really matter how you crop that afterwards, because the focus point can always be used as the major information for how this should be cropped. So this is really, really helpful. and can now be done directly in the panel. And it's cool because it's already in our previews, so you can instantly see the results of it. I think it is also pretty easy for editors to understand how they can use this, and they can optimize it on the fly, which I think is nice. Another new feature that I want to show you is our color field, also only available as plugins so far. And again, one of those fields where you feel like, yeah, okay, it should be in the core, definitely. It's not like such a typical use case. So what I did here is I combined it with a structure field to fake those options for products. So in such a shop situation or in a product catalog situation, you could easily use this to have multiple variants of a product or a project in different colors, where your editors could then assign color names. And yeah, this is how it works. We implemented our own little component here again, where you can just move it around and set your color just like you want. This is getting further because I can then also have a couple predefined options. So I could totally say, okay, if I choose those colors, I already want to have suggestions because we have a couple brand colors or like a couple predefined definitions that we want to use in our set. And if you want to make it even more strict for your editors, you could also switch to the options mode, which would then basically only use those options that you predefined. Let me reload that again. And if I go in here, now I have just a selection of color swatches that I can select for, which are predefined and you can't be changed. You can also combine those predefined options with color names. So this is a bit redundant here. I did this for the sake of the shop demo, but you could also attach a name to each color and then use that, for example, in your front end later, or just use it here to guide your editors, which is also possible. How far am I in time-wise? Should I continue, or do we want to?
I think one more content.
Okay, cool. Staying on this shop demo here, I also switched on our new toolbar for the Ryer here. This is another improvement for the Ryer. The Ryer has a couple improvements. We added new formats. We added a better drop-down for this, which it makes it easier to switch between the block formats here. We also have new inline formats available, which you can switch on. I didn't do this here. It is also using our link field now, as I showed you before. And most importantly, this has also been one of the big requests from the community. We now have an option to switch on the toolbar. So for example, this would be also a Ryer. Okay, does not have any inline styles at all. But normally how the Ryer works is you have like this little bubble. So you have to select something and then you get the bubble toolbar and then you can choose this, and which is really nice because it is so invisible and it doesn't really confuse you when you look at the blocks. And for something like the blocks, I still very much prefer this. But then what we got as feedback is, in some cases, it is more confusing that because it isn't instantly visible and you wouldn't know that you can format something. So what we changed here is that the Ryer field now can look pretty much like the text area, except that it is a Visibig field. So you can have bold text or italic text or whatever directly here. And through the new toolbar, it's a lot more visible now. We also have the new option to erase styles. As I said before, we have a couple other new available inline styles. So it is becoming more powerful for you to use as a replacement for text areas. Okay, one last, and then I'm good with the shop, because I think this is also a pretty exciting one. Well, no, I mixed it up right now. No, exactly. It's not in the shop. It is in in this, I put it into this agency side. Another big feature that has been just a plugin so far, which is now in the core, is the option to define queries for our pages and files sections. And this is super, super useful if you want to filter something first before you show it. What I did here, for example, is we have this clients area. So for this agency, I pretended to have a little contact relationship management system here with clients. And each client has their own projects. So if I go to a project, then there would be a page field here which selects the client that's for this project here. And normally you would have this one direction, so you could build you could link to a client here. Basically, if you click through it, you get here. And now it's pretty easy to also give you a page section where you get all the projects that you built for this client. Let me show you how this looks like. So if I go here and I go down to the projects list, so this would be my projects selection here. And what I did is I used the pages field, and I'm querying now a model method which would then give me all the projects of that particular client. I can do it like this. In our release page, we use it to filter products in the shop. This could also work like this. So you could say I have all my products from the shop, but only those which have a price that is higher than 900 euros or something. So you could use it as a filter, you could use it to build relationships. And I think this is the most exciting part about it. You can now have lots and lots of different options to use our queries to pre-select what is in your pages sections or also in your file sections, which is a pretty powerful tool. With this, I think it makes sense to make a break, talk a bit more about it, or whatever you have planned.
You know me, I don't have plans. I never have plans. Well, thank you so much for that one already. I mean, this blog already that you just gave us as a little appetizer is full with like really new stuff. I personally, I'm a big fan of the color tool. I do really like it, especially what you just mentioned about predefined colors. So it's all like targeting people using the panel a lot, really. I myself am still a huge fan of like writing in text, really. But I love the flexibility that you can decide what you want to do. If it's just for the content, like for me, and I'm still working on my own, it's great to be in the text editor. But to see what the panel, how mighty the panel gets nowadays, might me want to edit more in the panel, to be honest. Is that like, do you want to like bring people to use the panel more than the text stuff? Or do you think, well, without the panel, you still can get the benefits, like the full benefits of Kirby?
I think reality is that most clients really need the panel to make use of their sites.
Closer to the mic. Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, I think most client projects will inevitably use the panel.
Okay.
Because the editing team does not want to work with text files.
Yeah. Do you think that's like part of like Kirby growing up a little bit?
Yeah. Well, for us, the step from Kirby 2 to Kirby 3 has been to introduce this new flexibility with the section system, with the files, with the fields, and all the options that you have to customize the panel. And I think this is, in my opinion, is our selling point, that you can customize the panel so much to really adjust to every project that you build, where you don't really only see it as a content management system, as a classical content management system, but more like a flexible framework for your ideas. How do you want to edit content, but also how do you want to work with different sites or different applications that you use in your company? So you can draw in information from different places. This is what we've seen in quite interesting client projects so far, that people use it as, I always describe it as a glue between different components. So in a bigger company, you have like multiple systems that often are completely separate, and you can use Kirby then to be like a little puzzle where you put all those pieces together. But you can also at the same time still take it as a very simple tool to just edit content.
Yeah.
So there's this wide range of opportunities, and in my opinion, this is for us the safest bet to have this range, because then we know that we give you the best framework or the best library for your ideas, and no matter what you plan with it, it will probably still work out. So that's kind of our idea behind it, to just keep it open to whatever you throw at it. And with every core change, that's always the idea. Will it improve on that? Will it make new ideas possible? Will it simplify setups that already exist? Will it make the editing easier and more enjoyable? But at the same time, we also still completely think about how is the underlying system. Does it still work with text files? Is it still manageable through just a text editor? Because that is also a huge selling point of it. And I think as soon as we lose that, we lose a major part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, using it with like more than one person and seeing like how powerful the panel got over the years, and knowing where Kirby came from, and seeing the how it evolves to this, I sometimes wish I would do client projects again, because I like the flexibility of like, for example, when I did a website for the person who did the light in our garden, I said like, well, how you need a website? You said, why don't I do your website and you do the light? So we did like a counter kind of trade. And he was literally sitting next to me and going, while he was looking at me building the panel, can I get this field there? And you just like in seconds, you move it around, you create a new one. So it's so easy to adapt to the needs of your client, really. And Ralph, in that case, was sitting next to me. And I do really love the how quick you can change stuff. And all the new features will be, if I show this to him, I do need to upgrade the web page, I think, because there's a really great stuff.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I always think about when I think back on to my time with my own client projects. It is that point in a client project when you feel like you don't have an answer anymore, which is really, really annoying. So the system that you are currently using gives you huge headaches because you can't move forward anymore. And then what do you say? We have to migrate to a different system. And of course, there will always be clients where that grow out of their content management system and need to move to a different one. We can't optimize for all clients on planet Earth, but at least the more we have like answers for all those questions, the more it is something where you think like, yeah, I can totally do this somehow. I can totally solve problems for my clients, and I can keep on solving problems for my clients, because let's be honest, this area is getting more competitive, more and more, and the answer has to be that you are able to always be on top of the wishes that your clients have. Well, sometimes it's about moderating them and saying, well, is this really a good idea that you want to do this? But many times it is about saying, yes, yeah, I can do this, no problem. Yeah, I can build you a little button that does project X or what does task X for you. So yeah, and I also personally get still mostly excited about this, because we use Kirby in the team as well as a tool to solve problems. And I think that is the idea behind it, that you can solve problems with it no matter what you do. And it does not necessarily have to be a website. It could also be problems for whatever you're doing. So people build invoice systems with it. We build currently a release system with it. We build our license system with it. So that you just have an idea, and sometimes writing an entire application is just not possible. It is too much, and you need to know too much. So this idea of having like this little Swiss Army knife that you can just pull out and apply your thoughts to it, and then prototype ideas and get going, I think it's still a very exciting part for me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have the benefit of following this quite closely because we're chatting
over many years.
Yeah, over many years, exactly. And for me, it's nice, and I honestly always am very happy to see like the new release coming up, and then seeing the positive feedback that it all encourages people to give you. So. As most of you online might know, Bastian is like also with one leg in the area of design. So how much of you being a designer still has an effect on the look and feel of Kirby, especially of the panel and how it feels? I know that you are like that you do like the very clean and straight design in the panel, but how much of you is still in there, or is there someone in the team that is taking over the designer's role in this case?
For a long time, we completely mixed this, but I think at the moment, or with Kirby 4, or also before Kirby 4, I think Nico and I turned into the front-end team, and we split roles a bit more at focusing on the strengths of each one in the team. And so Nico and I built the UI system around it, and it was a funny process because I still could play the designer, but then I would have like a live critic sitting next to me and saying like, yeah, this doesn't work for me. And then I could go back and work on it. And Nico would sometimes come up with ideas. So I feel like it was great to go back to that role some more, because for a long time I have been way more of a developer than a designer. And with Kirby 4, I could be a bit more of a designer again. But I also think that designing Kirby is a lot about tuning it back. So it isn't, our goal is always to build a system that would work with as much content, or as the widest variety of content as possible. So it should look good no matter what you added with it. And I love, we talked about it before in other release shows, the Kirby Sites project by Thomas Günther, and it is such a great collection of sites, because you can click on each site and then the preview switches, and then you see how the panel behind the project looks.
Yeah, I like that one, yeah.
Yeah, and this is like such a good measure for me if the design works, because if the panel looks good, no matter what kind of content is in there, then I think we are doing a good job. This is not about Kirby. It's not about us building the most fancy tool in the world. It is about a tool that would make you happy when you look at it, because it lets your content shine.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the page right now.
You have to scroll down, and we have linked it there as well.
I think so, right?
Yeah, it's down there. You can. Yep. Yeah, there it is.
There you go. Just paste it into the chat.
So, it could be a bit more of a designer for this one. Still, yeah, it's weird. It is a bit of my past. It feels like it is so long ago that I was at the university studying design.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fun.
Nice, but then it's nice to see your kids growing up, right? And other people taking over.
Yeah.
It's like when the boyfriend of Kirby comes and slowly he gets into the life of Kirby.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what do we have on the schedule? What is left to talk about, like from your end? Like, what do you want to demo?
I would show a few more things. Well, I think we can't show everything in this release or in this release show, because it's just too much, and I also can't really go into details. It doesn't make sense to show you all the settings, how you would develop this. But I could just show a few more of the features and talk a bit more about the ideas behind it, because on our release page we already show all those features, but it is sometimes a bit tricky to talk about them in detail.
Yeah, and then I encourage you, by the way, to collect your questions in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, please.
It doesn't make any sense to answer them, because like everybody else in the chat answers the questions that are coming up already, which makes it easier for us. But
that's great.
It's cool to see Ahmed, for example. He's like doing.
Yeah, he's doing live support. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but so what again are we focusing on then next? I mean, you've shown some great stuff already. I see you have a list here.
Yeah, It's not too long, but I have a couple cool things coming up now.
Yeah. Great. Then let's dive into another demo block.
I talked about the blocks field before. I talked about the improvements that we have to the blocks field before. One of the improvements that I missed so far, which is in a completely different demo. I just extended the demo for this release show. This is basically what we have on our demo side. And parts of that already landed in the demo while I worked on it yesterday. I thought like, okay, this would be really cool to add to the demo side. So some of the stuff that I'm showing here today is also now available on our live demo. What I wanted to show you next is for our blocks field, we have another feature, again, a huge user request. I mean, this is a theme for Kirby 4 that we went through our list of feature requests on Nolt, and we basically just thought, okay, those are the ones that we finally want to get done because so many people ask for it. And I think this was a good guideline. So I built a little contact form for our fake agency here, put it into its own tab. And what I'm using here is our new field preview for blocks. This is going back to the days of the builder. Some of you might still remember it has been a super popular plugin. And it was there before the blocks field. Then we came up with the blocks field, which had made it a lot more visual. Basically introduced a new what you see is what you get spirit to the builder. But there are parts where people kept asking for the builder functionality because sometimes it is really easier to just have blocks of fields that you can edit. And this has been done by a plugin as well, or solved by a plugin as well in the last month. And again, this was one of the things where we said, yeah, okay, our blocks field should really be able to do that. And now this is possible. So you can now switch on the fields preview for individual blocks. And this can be used for pretty much anything. So it doesn't really matter what you build with that. It does not have to be a form. I used it here for a form builder, but you can do whatever you like with this. It could just fill in little information that you have to rearrange, or just fill in information for a certain kind of module on a page. In this case, I used it for fields, and I set up only 3 types of fields. So there are text fields, an email field, and a text area field. And I can now add new fields here. I could totally extend this with radio buttons and whatever. So it works perfectly for this application of building a form. And of course, it has all the power of the blocks field, because now I can, of course, drag things around and I can add new blocks below each other, and I can or move them up or down or change their type. And so I can extend those field blocks, field blocks, and I can collapse them to make it easier to edit them. And then in here, I can have any kind of field from our field system, which is really cool because now I can have simple ones like this one, or I could totally go crazy and have lots and lots of fields in there, depending on however you want to do this. And yeah, the beauty of this is that it all ties into our typical block system. So how this would look like is that I have defined different block field sets here, and they look like this. So I have my fields here. This is how I switch it on. If I set preview to fields and what you see is what you get to true, I can switch this on, and then I have the typical options for my block types here. And I have my typical field definitions here. And for each block that I'm building, I can still have my own block snippets. So I have an email field block snippet here, and I have a text field block snippet here. And all it really does is to build the code, the HTML code for that field. And that's pretty much it. So if I go to that page, it has a little contact form, and I could now go back to my panel and then rearrange them and say, okay, no, the message should go up here and it should be the first. And if I go back to, well, where was I? So then this would be rearranged. again, as I said, it is a great way to build forms. It is also totally usable for modular systems. Sometimes if you don't want to use the layout system for something like a microsite, you could use this to build modules for a microsite. I think your ideas matter here, and you can build them all with this. The next one isn't about fields. It is about security and about user management and authentication. And I don't know if you've seen this. We have promoted it just yesterday, I think. It is the new time-based one-time tokens. One-time code. Oh, I'm always getting lost. It's TOTP. And you switch it on in your config. I have a custom config here, and you can switch it on like this. And then if you go back here into your account settings, you can set them up like this. And now what you would do is go to your authenticator app of choice and scan this QR code. You would be provided with a one-time code here, and this would be setting this up. And then whenever you want to log into your account again, you could then have two-factor authentication with an authenticator app, which is really, really cool and very convenient, and also a lot more secure than just single password logins. I'm super happy about this. This has been a project of Nico and Lucas, who just came up with, I think it was a user, someone wrote us on Mastodon. I don't really remember anymore that this would be a perfect thing for Kirby to have. And then they just came up like one day later, by the way, we built this. And I absolutely love this because it's not just, it's one of those things that is massively enhancing Kirby, but it also has those nice side effects because now we have a QR code generator in Kirby, which you can use for your own projects again, which does not have to be just for TOTP. So this is absolutely lovely, and I love this collaboration that sometimes happens just from a single post, and you think like, yeah, this totally makes sense. Let's give it a try, and then a few hours later, oh, okay, we did it. Sometimes things are easy. Sometimes things are unfortunately not that easy, and we get a request, and then we would love to solve it, and then we look into it, and it turns out, shit, it's super hard to build. This was not one of those things. Another one of those options to customize your panel is, I talked about the sidebar and how the sidebar can be much more than what the top bar has been before, and much more than what you see here, because the sidebar can now be customized as well. You can have a new menu option in the config, which then gives you the opportunity to have your own sidebar. And this is another thing that I wanted to demo. It looks like this. I can switch it on with with the menu option inside the panel group. I loaded this extra file here. You can totally have this in the config directly. You don't have to put it into an extra file. I put it here because it's a bit longer for the sake of this demo. It can be super easy. It does not have to be that extensive. But I just wanted to show you how this could look like. So when I reload this now, I have a completely different menu. Which has now shortcuts to my blog and to my restaurant and to the shop and to the agency and to the portfolio and the microsite. Well, this is a demo setup, so this use case doesn't really make that much sense. You wouldn't probably have a restaurant, shop, agency, portfolio combination in your projects, but you get the idea. You can now easily build like shortcut links to certain sections of your site, or you could even have shortcuts to certain dialogues, which is pretty amazing. So for example, you can now say, I want to have a quick shortcut to create a new blog article. And then the dialog would open from the menu and give you this option to create a new page. You could also combine this with the new page creation dialog that I showed before to really have a really easy way to enter data and fill this in right from your sidebar. You can combine this with existing views and existing parts of the panel. So in this case, the languages are still in there, the system is still in there. You can use it to control what is in there. Sometimes you maybe want to hide something, but you don't want to go through permissions because it should still be available via URL. So this is just a great way for you to customize the menu. And when we are here in the sidebar, we haven't talked about languages yet. Languages also got an upgrade, because now if I turn this into a multi-language site with English and German, if I can't type German, that's a bit weird. So far, if you wanted to have custom translatable strings for your languages, you would need to add them to the language files. So for example, you would need to go here and then to your language file and then add translations here, which is fine if you want to do this manually as a developer. This is totally great. But sometimes your editing team really wants to do that because they want to be in charge of the translations for certain kind of keys and translated strings on the site. And now they can do this. So I can now switch to the new language view. This is also completely new. And we have the language variables down here where we can add new ones. So let's pretend again we are working on a shop. And I want to have a couple translatable strings for my shop. This would be the English version. So I can define those keys here and then already provide an English translation. And if I switch back to German now, I can start translating those. You see, this is now read-only, so I can't change the key anymore because the default language decides which keys are available. And here I can then just focus on the translation. And all this does is to fill in my translations array. Let me put this in the editor. My translations array in the language files. So nothing really changes. It's not a parallel universe. It is still just managing those arrays here, but it is a really helpful way for your editors to do this directly in the panel and no longer need your help as a developer to add new keys here, for example. That would be that. And then as a last big one, I wrote about it on Discord. And you might have seen it also. No, you can't really see it in the release notes. I think it isn't there, but it is such a big part of the redesign process for Kirby 4. We have a new UI lab directly in the panel. It doesn't look like this if you open it on your system because all those components aren't installed. But okay, this I have to start from a different angle here. When we worked on this new version, we started from scratch basically because we really wanted to have a new look at what we want to achieve. And sometimes working on the existing code base is a bit daunting. There are just so many moving parts and the components are working together in a pretty fixed way, and it doesn't feel lightweight to design things in an existing code base. So what we did when we started last January is we built a little UI lab for ourselves where we could just experiment with new design ideas in HTML and CSS first, a little bit of JavaScript later. And then once we were happy with them, we turned them into our Vue components or we moved them over. But then we had the problem that our Vue components were, or what we built in our UI lab wasn't really in sync with what we did in our source code. There was no way to synchronize that. And so we thought like, this is really slowing down the process, or it's making the process unnecessarily complex. And so the idea came up, couldn't we just have our own UI lab inside the panel? Because we already have everything that we need in the panel. We could build Kirby in Kirby. And so we built this where we can have examples and test environments for each component that we built. and we can we can play around with them while we build them. So we have different states of our components where we can show how to use them, or we can try if the styles work out and just test them here. And so this is what we built them. We built this for ourselves, and then we thought, well, maybe this would be a cool addition to the panel to just keep it in there, because it's a great place for you to explore all the UI components if you are a plugin developer and you're working on Kirby plugins, because you can now inspect all those plugins, all those components. You can see how they work together. You can see the different options that they are. We have even built in documentation for each component, so you can read through the properties and see the source code, example source code. You can read through the descriptions for each property. And this is like growing with what we are doing. So while we are working on all of this, the docs and this UI lab is getting better and better. And so it felt like a much easier way for us to keep all this updated and give you like the best state of what you're working with as a plugin developer, or if you're customizing the panel for yourselves. And for us, it is a great way to test all of this, because we can easily send you there and say, okay, here there seems to be an issue. Could you check out this? And we could create new examples for issues that we can then replicate through this and send you there. And it has completely changed the way how we work on all our front-end parts, because it makes things so much easier for us. We can have different setups for complex parts. Let me find one of those. Now I'm stuck. Okay, I'm a bit lost now, but what we can do is we can throw like really edge casey things at it and say, okay, if we put a long string into something, how does it look? How does it break? How is it behaving in a responsive environment? And normally this would always happen in a parallel universe, in something like Storybook or Fractal, if you ever worked with those tools, where it is as close. It is like 90% there, but it is not really there. And now it is directly in our panel, and we know that this is just it. This is just a panel, and we can also do crazy things like test our drop downs, or test our dialogues in there, test our drawers, fill them with different test scenarios to see if all of this works. And it's really, really cool. And I just hope that it also works for you to get a better feel for what you can do with the panel and feel more comfortable with extending it. So that's a big part of it. We are still working on a way to install this, because all of this is quite a lot of code, and we decided last minute to not put it into the final release. So if you install this, you will see that all of those components and documentation isn't really in there. You can install it afterwards, which we have to still show you how to do that. But if you want to have a really easy way to try this out immediately, you can just go to lab.getkirby.com and see the latest version always available online for you to go through. Pretty much like a great place to get documentation for this. And with this, well, there would be so much more, but I feel like it could go on and on forever, and it's maybe just getting too long. So what do you think, Marc?
I guess we need to do a second edition again. Maybe remote, maybe spontaneously tomorrow. Let's find out, because the setup is here. Wow, it looks like there's like a lot that you already think about for future versions as well. If I see what you do there, like with like including people and being able to send them to those things you showed us at the end.
Yeah. Well, yes, we have ideas and plans, and we have this huge list of requests. So of course, everything everything that we build is always like a puzzle. Like we're trying to prepare things that don't work. I talked about issues that we can't solve easily. Like TOTP was something that we could solve easily with what we already had as components and tools, and that was great. But sometimes we know that there are those requests where we feel like, okay, this is a journey. We have point A, and between here and the final result, we still have to solve this, and this. And so sometimes we are still like working on things, or we are already working on things that think like a year ahead, because we know we also have to do this first and this next and this next. So yeah, a lot of this is building or preparing ideas that we have, or to solve questions, solve feature requests, etc.
With all that, how do you, as a team, avoid the risk of overcommitting, like putting too much on your plate?
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's just a mess, and then we have to sort ourselves again and like
prioritize, right?
Yeah, prioritize. I realized this in the last week, that my head already started spinning again. I was like, okay, now it's getting quiet again. There's no more space for new ideas. And then like, okay, now I have to slow down. We still have to do like
family time,
post-launch, relax, prepare a few more documentation things, focus more on family again, and not start over. But yeah, it's sometimes hard.
Yeah, if you're on the run and you just have the kind of like energy from what you're doing right now, it drives you, right? So, yeah, it's a bit like, as you said, like I think yesterday, this kind of like avoiding the kind of like black hole you fall into after a big release or after a conference in my case, and going like, I just need to go further and get going, and then there will never be a black hole.
But that's the risky part, where you can easily then, as you said, overcommit yourself and do too much, and also not get stuff done. That's I think it's also a big problem, that we often have ideas that might sound amazing, and then we work on it and we realize we have to focus more on how do we actually get this done? How would we end, or where is the end of this? So
So talking about the roadmap or future plans, what is on your list for like in short term and maybe in long term? Where do you want to go get in? I mean, obviously you're watching closely what is evolving in the web. You said many of the decisions you made are based on what happened between the last version and the version now. So you adapted. You made made Kirby using all of the pretty new features and tools and things we can use nowadays. So maybe for long term, it's maybe more like, where do you want to see Kirby in 2 or 3 years from now? Because like it's always like you might think, well, what can follow after this release? Because this is already like, except from bug fixing and all this kind of little enhancements and stuff, right? So let's start with like a short term look. Like what's next for Kirby 4, like what are you planning? It's like what's in your head? Give us a little glimpse into your head.
For Kirby 4, I think it's easier because we have those open tasks where I said we had to draw a line and say, now we just stop here and we release this, and then we can still have 4.1 and 4.2 and 4.3 and then still do like all those things, but not for 4.0. And this was important to get to this point and say like, time doesn't stop at 4.0. It goes on from here. So it would be improvements. I showed the link fields. There are already feature requests for the new link field, because it would be cool to have queries for that again. So you can filter which kind of pages should be in there. And the same for the move dialog. And then, there were a couple other parts where people already had like wishes based on what they saw in the alphas and betas, and we're like, they totally make sense, but can't do it right now. So that would be the short term part. There is one task that is getting on our nerves quite a lot, which is also kind of short termish, which would be, we are still on Vue 2. This is the front-end framework behind it, and which is now basically outdated. So there is now Vue 3, and we had huge issues to migrate to that, and we didn't manage to do that for Kirby 4. So this is still on our list to get this done, because With the front-end framework, the problem is we have now plugins, lots of them, and when the front-end framework changes quite drastically, then all those plugins are suddenly dead. And we have this problem with every major release, that some of the plugins then break, but we can't risk to break all of them at once. So we have to find a path again, how we get there. And so this is going around our heads quite a lot at the moment. Then we have to, it's getting like into a never-ending joke about the blueprint editor that we would like to have, which is also a huge requested feature. I've been talking about it for years. This is like, the blueprint editor is such a great example for this. Here's we want to have it, we start thinking about it, and then B would be the end where we launch it. But between A and B, there are like
millions,
thousand steps. Yeah. And whenever we start moving, we feel like, okay, now we've solved this, now we need to solve this, and now we solved this. I think we have solved a lot already, and it feels more approachable or more achievable now. It's still such a big task. Our main problem with that is that the flexibility of Kirby is our biggest strength on one hand, but also sometimes
the biggest enemy.
Because with the flexibility, we have so many things that we need to think about. I keep saying the same things here, but it is what it is. So we keep solving things. That's kind of like the long-term goal, is to solve problems. I feel this is where we can do best, when we just keep on improving what we are doing, because honestly, sometimes we might mess this up as well, but I feel like this is something that is often forgotten in software development. We did this as well from Kirby 2 to Kirby 3. We talked about this a lot of time, where we just basically broke the entire thing from one version to the next and built something completely different. We decided not to do this again anymore. Kirby 4 is not like that radical step. It looks a bit different, but most sites actually, as we get reported, upgrade quite easily. There are projects that are a bit harder, but that should be our goal, to just keep on improving without constantly breaking stuff. And as long as we keep doing that, I feel like we have the best chance to keep people happy, because then projects can evolve with us and they don't just stop at some point and then get left behind.
Absolutely right.
And it's tricky. I mean, PHP changes a lot, front-end part changes a lot, the projects change a lot. So that is already our biggest challenge that we have to think about in the future. And then the extendability of Kirby is what we, I think, have as the general vision. How can we make it even easier to work with? How can we not turn it into bloatware, where the features suddenly get too much? How can we maybe even take a step back? And
I think that's very risky, what you say there. It's absolutely true. Like over-featuring some software, right? Where you think like, well, someone must have asked for that, otherwise it wouldn't be in there. But I like the clean approach, and that you can enhance and get more features than through plugins, for example, and not like have it baked into the core system, right? So
so it's this balance between what goes into the core and what can we add to the core that makes the core more useful for plugins as well. The documentation part that I showed with the lab is based on the feedback that we got from plugin developers for a long time, that our front end isn't well documented enough, and it is hard to extend that. And we really wanted to extend it, to make it as extendable as possible, more easily. We also have a new JavaScript API that I didn't show now, which basically can automate all the parts in the panel, or which gives you access to all the parts, so you can easily open a drawer or open a dialog, open the menu, close the menu, work with all those different elements in your plugins and do what you have in mind. Because this is like, we've been talking about the state of the web, and I feel like we can't really prepare for what is coming. With AI on the big screen now and being super hyped, I constantly keep asking myself, like, what can we do there to stay on top of all of this? And in my opinion, the best bet for us is that we keep the system in a way. Yeah, if you need this, you can add it to it. And if we feel like it is being requested a lot by the community to have something new that is now turning into something really useful, then we can do that. We can turn things into the core easily, and we can also provide ways to not have it in the core if we don't want it to have it in the core. So both ways should be open for us, and the more we invest into options to keep those paths open, it feels safer for me.
Totally understandable. Yeah. So I do see a trend. That's what I noted down here as well. Kirby meetups popping up. What is this kind of trend? So I don't know. In the past, there haven't been too many meetups. There was like one here, one there, but like now 3. I mean, okay, it's around the launch time of Kirby 4. It's like, it seems like people tend to do more meetups these days. Again, which I love to see, by the way. But especially for Kirby, is that a new thing that people ask you for, or was it more like a coincidence that they said, like, we do one in Hamburg and Munich and today also in Düsseldorf?
You know, we almost had our first conference in 2020 when COVID started. And we were like 2 weeks away from it. And we had to cancel it like really last minute. And everybody was super bummed about it. And we were quite sad that it didn't work out, because lots of people already committed to it. And we were so excited to see folks from the community finally for the first time in real life. And that was a time with Kirby 3.5 where I felt like there was also like a certain high where there was lots of excitement about what we did. And then the next years were quite bumpy for all of us. And you know that better than anyone.
Absolutely.
And there were no meetups, no chances for conferences anymore. And that was a really I'm sorry. That was a really tough time, And then and it isn't like it has fully recovered, but it is at least getting to a point again where we feel like, maybe there could be new plans. And we met at Bordernon and the conference in Nuremberg that you organized together with Yoshi. And there were a couple of Kirby folks there, and we had a lovely lunch, and we're hanging out together. And people were like, there should be another Kirby conference. And we were like, we would also...
Would have been my next question.
Yeah, we would totally love that. And we are carefully thinking about it, or cautiously thinking about it, maybe for 2024. And then the first, or like the result of that lunch in Nuremberg was, we could just keep it simple and start with meetups first.
Nice,
And then I
mean, I like it. I like to see this stuff popping up again. People are eager to create events themselves again, and to go out and create spaces where people could meet. Wonderful. And we're going to go to one pretty soon.
Pretty soon, that's true. We
therefore,
have to leave pretty soon.
Yes. So therefore, we need to wrap it up. As much as I like to see that more people coming in here. We were close to 60 at some point.
That's so cool.
Still over 50, which is great. If you just came in and think like, damn, I missed all of that. The stream is over now. We have recorded everything, and I guess maybe tomorrow already we can publish it, because we don't need much cutting or anything. And then we put it on to YouTube and into like the Discord channel as well. We announced it.
And we don't have any questions, so
I
answered everything.
I think so, because I have to say, like,
thank you so much.
21 minutes ago, I was asking, is there any question for Basti? No, it is not. And all the questions that were given were mostly answered by Ahmed.
Well, the thing is, if you still have something, we are there on Discord. We are there in the forum. We can also write an email, but Discord, forum, both work great for us. And there's the meetup. And so maybe there can be more meetups. So if you have if you just have the option to organize something really small, then go for it. It does not have to be anything fancy. You can just meet at a bar or restaurant, or
that's how most meetups start, actually. Back in the days, right?
That's what I like about it. It does not have to cost anything. It does not have to. There don't need to be speakers, or they don't. Just hang out together. I really think it would be great to have more of those.
Yeah. In Vienna, for example, like Bruno says.
Yeah, and Munich also. There's Düsseldorf today and Munich today. So Munich seems to be pretty full already. Düsseldorf, there seem to be more space. So if you want to come spontaneously to Düsseldorf tonight,
on the train,
5:30,
you will get there,
but you don't get back.
You don't get back.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty unlucky situation.
Yeah, cool. Basti, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for hosting it again. You are a huge help with this.
Absolutely. I like to do more of that. And we're actually not too far away. We can do that more often.
Yeah.
And with that, everybody out there, 49 people still, because a few jumping off already.
Yeah, it's
we say
getting late.
Goodbye.
See you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Exactly. See you next time.
Bye-bye.